Hello again everyone, Jessica with From Dream to Seed, and today I have a video all about planting potatoes. So I didn't pick a great day to plant potatoes. It is upper 40s today, and it was actually spitting snow a little bit this morning, which if you don't speak Midwestern American, that means there were snow flurries. So spitting snow, that's what we say. But you know, this whole spring has not been great. By this time, this is what, second week of April, usually I have had all of my cool season crops in the ground, seedlings that I've grown from seed or things that I'm direct sowing. So I really need to get carrots and peas and these potatoes in the garden, but the weather has just not been cooperative here at all. This has been one of the coldest springs that I can remember. I can't remember snow this late in a really long time, but is what it is. And it is kind of hard because we have really short springs to begin with. So it's gonna warm up when it does decide to warm up. It's gonna warm up super fast, which makes it really hard to grow some of these cool season vegetables. But we have had rain for the past several days, and today it's mostly clear. Tomorrow is actually going to be fairly warm, and it is going to warm up some next week. We're just going to get a lot of rain. So I wanted to take advantage of a somewhat rainy, less day to get these potatoes in the ground, and then that way they can benefit from the warm weather that we're going to have and the rain that we're also going to get next week. And that'll save me from having to haul a hose down to the garden to water those potatoes. So I mentioned in my last video that I purchased all of my seed potatoes from Wood Prairie Family Farm, and I'll link their information below. And I've done this the last 2 or 3 years, and I've had great success with their seed potatoes. I get asked a lot if you can just buy potatoes from the store and sprout them to grow more potato plants, and the answer is maybe. You definitely want to get organic potatoes, and that's because most unorganic, that's the word, most inorganic potatoes are sprayed with inhibitors that keep them from sprouting, because most people buy potatoes for consumption, so they don't want them sprouting, which defeats the purpose if you're trying to grow more potato plants. But remember, organic potatoes in the grocery store are also grown for consumption. So they're grown for their size, and they can be stored for really long periods of time, which as the potato ages, it can definitely inhibit its ability to grow a new plant or to sprout from there. So I personally just like to buy seed potato from a quality store. Eventually, I might try to grow potatoes for my own seed potatoes, but for right now I'm just growing to feed my family. So I figure why mess up a good thing, and I just continue to purchase good quality seed potatoes from Wood Prairie Family Farms. So once you get your seed potatoes, if you're not going to plant them right away, you can definitely store them for a little bit in a cool, dark location. But otherwise, you can begin the process of chitting your potatoes. And chitting potatoes just means that you're allowing those potatoes to go ahead and sprout in a warm location. And this just sort of awakens the potato plant. It kind of signals to the plant that it's time to grow, and it will kind of speed up the process of those plants growing once you plant them. So to chit your potatoes, the first thing you're going to want to do is to place them in a warm location. It doesn't necessarily have to be sunny, but it does need to be warm. And that will allow the potato to start sprouting. And you'll want to let those sprouts get, honestly, any size. You don't want them to get huge because then they can break off pretty easily, but I like to get mine maybe ½ an inch. And then I will place those in a sunny location to allow those sprouts to green up a little bit. Now, if your potatoes are really, really small and you only have maybe 1 or 2 sprouts per potato, you can go ahead and just leave that potato whole. Otherwise, you can cut the potato up into smaller pieces. I think maybe like 1 to 2 ounce size pieces. But you want to make sure that you have at least 2 sprouts per piece. And once you've cut that up, you want to let the potatoes sit for just a few days, and you'll notice a callus kind of start to form on the edge of that potato. And this will protect the potato plant from rotting when you put it into the ground. Oh man, it's really, really cold. So I'm gonna hurry up and gather up my supplies and get these potatoes in the ground so I can go back inside. So I've gathered up all the supplies that I will need to plant these potatoes. I have my 3 different types of seed potatoes. I have Prairie Blush, King Harry, and Butte, and I chose these varieties because they are good for storage, and also because I have an early, a mid-season, and a late potato, which means I'm getting kind of a continual harvest through the season. I also have my plant tags ready to go. I have some all-purpose organic fertilizer, and I really like Garden Tone from Espoma. I've had good luck with that. And then I also have my garden hoe ready to dig trenches. So I grow my potatoes in a raised bed that's at least 12 inches deep and amended with a lot of compost. If you're growing in ground, you want to make sure that you have amended the top 12 inches of that soil with plenty of compost or organic material so that the potatoes have nice loose soil to grow in. Here you can see me amending my bed with that garden tone, and I'm just going to go ahead and place this all over the bed. And I'm going to work it into the top few inches of the soil. Now normally I would water this in, but because we're going to get rain tomorrow, I'm not going to worry about it today. Next, I'm going to take a garden hoe and I'm going to dig trenches. And you can see that dirt is nice and loose, lots of organic matter. This is a perfect consistency to grow potatoes in. So I'm going to dig these trenches about 6 to 8 inches deep and about 12 inches apart. Now, if you're growing in ground and you like to get machinery in between to weed, you're going to want those trenches to be a little bit farther apart. But 12 inches apart is a great distance for raised beds. And here you can see the trenches that I dug the whole length of the raised bed with nice big hills of soil in between the trenches. And next, I just like to add a little bit of fertilizer at the base of those trenches. This isn't necessary, but I like to have fertilizer to help those potatoes root really well. And like I said, normally I would water this in, but since we're going to get rain tomorrow, I'm going to skip that step as well. Next, place your potatoes sprout side up, cut side down, making good contact with the soil at the bottom of the trench. And you'll want to space those potatoes out about 12 inches apart. So for instance, I have a 3-foot wide bed, so I can put 3 potatoes in each trench. So now all the potatoes are planted. I didn't have quite enough to put 3 in each trench, but that's okay because the Butte variety will get a lot bigger. So having 2 in each trench will work out just fine for that variety. So now you're going to cover up your potatoes, and you're basically just going to do the opposite of what you did before. So you're going to take the dirt that was on either side of those trenches and use it to create a hill over top of those potatoes. And so when I make a follow-up video, I will discuss more about what hilling is, but basically you're just creating a mound over those potatoes. So we don't want any potatoes as they start to form to be exposed to sunlight as they'll turn green, and you don't want that. So you do a process called hilling, which is where you're taking soil or really any organic material and you're covering up those plants as they grow upwards to prevent sunlight from being exposed to those potatoes. Now the Prairie Blush and the King Harry are determinate potato varieties, so they won't need to be hilled as much, but the Butte variety is an indeterminate, which means it will grow much bigger, so I'm going to have to be much more vigilant about hilling that variety. And here's a different angle so you can see that hilling process just a little bit better. And that's it, potatoes are planted. So I will be making more videos throughout the season about how I continuously care for those potatoes, fertilizing, pest control, harvesting. So I have my hoops up too in case I need to cover these if we get another cold snap. I also keep my hoops up over potatoes if I need to cover them for pest control issues. When I was digging the trenches, I noticed quite a few earthworms, which is great. That is a sign that I've got healthy soil, but I also found quite a few grubs, which is not so great. So grubs in my area are usually Japanese beetle larvae. And so I'm gonna have to be careful if I cover these potatoes. So, oh, the sun's coming out. Yay! Of course when I'm finished, but that's okay. It's still good. I am going to have to be careful because if you cover potatoes with grubs that are coming up from underneath instead of flying in or as Japanese beetles, then you're basically just trapping those pests in and they can just eat away without any worry of birds or any of those other natural predators getting in. So be cautious of that when you're covering plants to control pests, that they're not pests that could possibly be coming up from underneath the soil. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and TikTok. I post short, easy to follow kind of tips and tricks for the garden, also pictures of my own garden and what we like to grow. And thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.